In the dead of night, in a dilapidated building, a woman is dancing gracefully. Yet in such a spooky and eerie apartment building, a couple has moved in. At first, everything seemed normal. However, just as they were about to pack their bags and leave, they were knocked unconscious and taken away by a group of intruders. When the woman awakens from her unconsciousness, she sees maggots wriggling on the face of the other person. The woman tries to escape but cannot move at all. Then, a terrifying girl spits into her mouth. The woman mysteriously finds herself in the hallway. She looks around in confusion, only to see bodies scattered everywhere in the apartment. What on earth is going on here? This is a horror film co-produced by Cambodia and Japan. In a dark, creepy hallway, a woman wearing a moon necklace runs anxiously. The sounds of children calling for their mothers echo around her, with weeping voices saying that the new year is approaching, yet the termites have been eaten away. At this moment, the woman quickens her pace, as she is about to escape the apartment. The girl, Mary, has cremated her mother's body and then returns home holding the ashes. She is feeling very down. At this time, her boyfriend John comes home from work and rushes towards her, wrapping her tightly in his arms. The next day, John notices that Mary is still in a bad mood, so he tries to find a topic to discuss. He casually starts rummaging through the belongings left by her mother. Inside, he finds an old cassette player and several tapes. Continuing to search, he discovers many photos. Mary picks up a group photo and sees on the back it says, "With Sister Mao, Aunt Mang," taken in 1984 at Meta apartment. In fact, Mary had come to Japan with her mother when she was very young, so she has no memory of Meta apartment. At this point, John asks if the people in the photo are still alive. Mary replies that her mother had told her that her family had all died during the Khmer Rouge period. That night, Mary falls asleep while looking at the urn, but she dreams of an apartment filled with corpses, with children crying out for their mothers in despair. In the next moment, Mary wakes up from her dream. She is unsure why she had such a dream, but she has to continue with her work as a horror comic artist. She arrives at her company. However, her boss looks at her work and feels that it lacks immersion, then asks her to find that immersive feeling. After leaving, Mary tells her boyfriend about this, and John says he has done some research and found that there are still many residents in Meta apartment. He suggests that they take a trip there for a few days. On one hand, returning to the old place might help ease the pain of her mother's death. On the other hand, the apartment could provide inspiration for Mary's comic creation, and he could also take more photos for a competition. Mary is very excited by this idea. Soon, they fly to Phnom Penh, Cambodia. After getting off the plane, they meet the agent who had contacted them earlier. The agent is very warm and welcoming, but the taxi he called suddenly has a flat tire on the way. At this point, a local driver approaches to pick them up, and John and Mary get into his car. The atmosphere in the car is relaxed and cheerful. The driver, Jim, asks where they are going. The agent seems reluctant to disclose, just saying to follow his lead. Mary quickly chimes in that they are going to Meta apartment. As soon as Jim hears those words, his expression suddenly turns anxious. He almost asks if they know what happened in the apartment, but his words are interrupted by the agent. Soon, they arrive at their destination. After warmly bidding farewell to John and Mary, Jim looks towards Meta apartment, and his expression turns serious again. What shocking secrets are hidden in this apartment? After John and Mary enter the apartment, they see a woman dancing. As a photographer, John immediately captures the moment with his camera. Then, they follow the agent to their room. Unexpectedly, while the apartment looks rotten from the outside, the rooms inside are very tidy. As Mary examines the room, a middle-aged woman gently taps her on the shoulder. She introduces herself as Aunt Mao and kindly starts chatting with Mary. Mary didn't expect to find a relative so easily. Completely. On the way, they see a shrine with an offering of a child, so they take another photo. They speculate that this might be a form of spiritual support, which helped people get through the dark Khmer Rouge period. Then, the two enjoy lunch at Aunt Mao's house. The food is very delicious, and Aunt Mao warmly invites them to come for all their meals in the future. Her niece, Lily, also likes them very much. As they play happily with Lily, suddenly Aunt Mao mysteriously asks Mary to follow her, then takes Mary to a red room. where there is an elderly woman. The elder wears a necklace similar to that of the woman in the opening scene. The elder remains silent and reaches out to touch Mary's face, and gives her a meaningful smile. However, Aunt Ma doesn't explain who the elder is. Mary and John return to their room. However, John had an upset stomach and felt weak. Mary thought it was due to the change in environment, but John believed it was the food that was the problem. He hoped to avoid Aunt Ma's cooking in the future. After all, having diarrhea was quite unpleasant. The understanding Mary didn't force him to eat in the deep of night. Apart from Mary and John, all the other residents of the apartment took incense and left their homes to gather at a filthy place. What were they doing there? The next day, Mary wandered around the apartment building with her niece. As they passed by a locked room, Mary felt as if something inside was watching her. Just as she was about to peek through the door, Lily suddenly leaned over and asked her what was wrong. John also came up to ask if everything was okay. Mary shook her head, and then they continued to explore the apartment. At this moment, John discovered a room without stairs and asked Mary what this place was for. Mary replied that it was a punishment room for disobedient people, which was likely created during the Khmer Rouge era. It was used to punish those who didn't conform to the new social standards. At that time, the policies were quite extreme, and many intellectuals and former regime military personnel who didn't fit in would be sent to the punishment room for re-education. Just as she finished speaking, Mary suddenly realized that Lily was missing, so the two immediately began to search for their niece. They anxiously ran through the eerie apartment building until they reached an abandoned room, where they finally found Lily playing. That night, Mary and John returned to look at their photos. To their surprise, they saw a strange girl holding a doll. As they wondered who she was, the surroundings suddenly plunged into darkness. When they went outside, they found it was pitch black outside as well. It seemed the apartment building had lost power. They didn't think much of it. However, at this moment in the hallway, a woman was laying out candles on the floor. Her eerie red lips and pale eyes were very terrifying, and there were no onlookers around, yet the woman began to perform a chilling dance. The next day, John wanted to go out to photograph the scenery of Angkor Wat. However, Mary said she couldn't go after making a call. Her boss had asked her to submit a new manuscript as soon as possible, so she needed to stay in the apartment to work. John, upon hearing this, planned to cancel their restaurant reservation, but Mary let John go by himself, as she had Aunt Ma's family to keep her company. Staying in the apartment would be fine. John thought this was okay. After saying goodbye to his girlfriend, he got into Jim's car. Immediately after, Mary was busy writing in the apartment, drawing while also playing her mother's cassette tape. At first, everything seemed normal, but suddenly, her mother's voice came through. Aunt Ma has died. The demon is about to start looking for the next host. She will not allow her daughter to be harmed. Suddenly, the scene around Mary shifted, and she witnessed Aunt Ma kneeling on the ground. The elderly woman she had been serving was just a host for the demon. In the next moment, Mary woke up from her sleep. The bright daylight had turned into an eerie night. Soon, Mary fell into a deep sleep again. This time, when she opened her eyes, she found herself lying on a strange bed, surrounded by the residents of the apartment. Two girls fed her some strange herbs, and then someone brought in a pig's head. Others splashed a lot of unknown liquid on Mary, chanting strange incantations. After all was done, everyone made way and knelt down to worship. Not far away, the elderly woman in the wheelchair slowly stood up. She was the same elderly woman from Aunt Ma's family. Despite having previously struggled to drink milk, she was now walking fast. As the old woman approached, Mary, wanting to escape, found herself uncontrollably lying on the pig's head. When she saw the old woman's crimson lips, Mary couldn't help but shiver in fear. However, the old woman watched her carefully and then opened her blood-filled mouth, and the skin on her face began to dry and crack. Startled, Mary had no idea how long she had been asleep. She just thought the nightmare was so real and terrifying. Terrified, she got out of bed, completely unaware of the hay left on the bed. To find out whether Aunt Ma was human or a ghost, she went to Aunt Ma's house to check the situation. However, she found many flip-flops at the entrance. Upon entering, she saw everyone folding gold ingots for the deceased. As she went further in, she realized that the elderly woman had died. Aunt Ma took off the moon necklace and placed it in a cup for safekeeping. Meanwhile, the girl with the doll began to wander around the apartment. Wherever she went, death would follow. She passed by a drunkard. Just as Mary was running out of Aunt Ma's house, looking down, she discovered the drunkard's dead body in a state of mental collapse. She could hardly distinguish between reality and illusion. Suddenly, Aunt Meng rushed out, crying and screaming at Mary. "It's all your mother's fault. She lured me into Meta apartment and caused the deaths of my husband and child." She wanted to say more, but Aunt Ma covered her mouth and forcibly took her away. Afterward, Aunt Ma sent the confused Mary back to her room, telling her to stay there and not go anywhere. Mary, feeling scared, called her boyfriend, but no one answered. From somewhere came the sound of a rocking chair moving, and Mary's heart grew increasingly anxious. She didn't know why she felt this way, so she curled up on the balcony, shivering. Looking beside her, she saw the girl with the doll again. The girl had the same crimson lipstick on her lips. Though she didn't open her mouth, she made a sound, shouting that the new year was coming and the termites had eaten everything. Then, the surrounding voices echoed with children calling for their mothers. Mary was so frightened that she woke up from her dream again. John was worried and asked her what was wrong. Mary looked around when she woke up, searching for the little girl she had just seen. At this moment, Aunt Ma entered with food, kindly asking Mary how her rest was. Mary mentioned that she had been having strange dreams lately, dreaming of a little girl named Meta. Upon hearing this, Aunt Ma's expression changed subtly, and she couldn't help but smile. Then she held out a cup of unknown liquid for Mary to drink. Mary didn't want to drink and refused, but Aunt Ma tried to force it into her. John was angry and pushed her away. Aunt Ma turned to leave with her eyes filled with malice, but Mary didn't want to lose the family connection she had longed for, and Aunt Ma had been taking care of her attentively these days, so she scolded her boyfriend for acting that way. John quickly explained that Aunt Ma had issues. Driver Jim told him about the rumors surrounding the apartment. So there must be something sinister in the food Aunt Ma delivered. He then asked his girlfriend to look in the mirror. Seeing her emaciated and haggard face, Mary finally agreed to leave with her boyfriend. However, before they could finish packing, the residents of the apartment burst in and knocked John down with a punch, then tied him up with ropes while he lay in a pool of blood. They then carried the fainted Mary away. Afterward, everyone dressed in white held incense in the apartment and came to the place where they often operated secretly at night. After lighting countless candles, the only one dressed in black, Aunt Ma, approached Mary. She told her not to try to resist. Meta has chosen you as her host, and you must atone for your mother's sins. Once everything is over, everyone will become a true family. Immediately after, everyone knelt down on the ground in sincere prayer. Soon, Meta appeared before Mary. At this moment, her face was crawling with disgusting maggots, and she spat into Mary's mouth. Mary wanted to resist, but it was utterly futile. In the next moment, Mary found herself in the dark hallway of the apartment, hearing the girl's anguished cries for her mother. She followed the sound to find its source. Along the way, she saw bodies scattered all over the floor, until she opened the locked wooden door she had seen earlier, only to find nothing inside. As she heard the cries again and turned around, she inexplicably found herself on the rooftop. The sky above was already shrouded in crimson. Mary looked ahead in confusion. Listening to the girl's piercing screams, Mary panicked and rushed back to the hallway. She shouted helplessly for help, but the empty apartment offered no response. Suddenly, Mary saw a room filled with light. But why was there another version of herself there? This other Mary was sitting upright in a white dress, with fiery red lips and her hair in a bun. There was a strange pattern on the back of her neck. What was most bizarre was that the two servants beside her were missing 4 of their facial features. Mary was frozen in fear when suddenly countless comic manuscripts rained down on her. She ran forward in a panic, only to find the hallway walls had inexplicably turned red. She helplessly dashed down the stairs, but in the blink of an eye, she found herself trapped in a small room that was entirely red. She pounded on the walls with all her strength, but it was useless. At this moment, comics from Meta apartment were continually falling from above, and it seemed Mary was about to be drowned in the paper. However, in the next moment, John, bloodied and battered, found the unconscious Mary and struggled to pull her out. As he ran, he kept looking back, but after only a few steps, they were spotted by the residents. The residents charged at them with axes, and John had to run upward. After running for a while, he realized they couldn't escape. They were completely trapped in the apartment. At this moment, Aunt Ma's voice echoed below. John picked up a metal rod to defend himself and continued to flee, but he was getting closer to Aunt Ma. Just then, Mary recovered herself and reached for the metal rod, hiding around the corner at a time, and then swung it down with all her might. However, Aunt Ma never approached. Instead, she looked at Lily's body on the ground and rushed forward, embracing her daughter while crying in despair. She hadn't expected her daughter to meet such a tragic fate. Meanwhile, Mary and John escaped the apartment. Suddenly, a car appeared ahead, and it was Jim arriving just in time. They prepared to get into the car, but as Mary was about to enter, she saw Meta. However, the car successfully started in the end. Jim said that Meta apartment lived up to its reputation. Now they needed to hurry to the hospital for treatment. But was everything truly over? Mary returned to Tokyo, and based on her experiences in Meta apartment, her comic received rave reviews upon publication. At this moment, she wore red lipstick and her hair in a bun, smiling as she looked at her comic book. John came over to bring her milk, but after delivering it, he walked away mechanically. Meanwhile, tied up, John awoke from his unconsciousness and looked around to find himself locked in a small room. As the camera pulled back, it became clear that he was imprisoned in the punishment room. No matter how hard he struggled, it was futile. At this moment, Lily and Meta were playing nearby, and they paid no attention to John's cries for help. Meanwhile, Mary, for some reason, found herself back in the apartment, and she was sitting in the old woman's rocking chair. Her gaze was vacant as she looked ahead. The film came to an end. After watching this movie, many viewers were left puzzled. Although it's clear that he is drawing on Cambodia's Khmer Rouge period, he aims to tell everyone that this dark history is filled with suffering. The film indeed references relevant content, such as the punishment room and the bodies lying in rivers of blood. It even shows people fighting to eat termites. Finally, many were still beaten to death or starved. These elements lay the tragic foundation for the entire story. Audiences, while watching, can deeply feel the weight of the historical significance. However, other messages are too difficult to understand. From the words of the heroine's mother, it's evident that Aunt Ma died during the Khmer Rouge period. Countless people had died in this apartment years ago. A deeply resentful demon cursed the apartment, and this demon should be the little girl who cried beside her mother's corpse during the Khmer Rouge era. This is why she appears so frequently and always haunts the heroine. Years later, the heroine's family fell victim to the curse in the apartment. Aunt Ma was resurrected as a servant by the demon, serving the demon-possessed host. The host was likely the woman wearing the moon necklace at the beginning. That's why the woman could never escape the apartment. Eventually, she became an old woman and the demon sought a new host. Just then, the heroine arrived, and Aunt Ma set her sights on her. It wasn't just because she was young and beautiful, but also due to Aunt Ma's resentment toward her sister. From that group photo, it can be seen that the mother was actually friends with Aunt Ma and Aunt Meng, but unfortunately, Aunt Meng died. The protagonist's mother escaped with her daughter. Here, we boldly speculate that the protagonist's mother made a deal with the demon. The price for her to escape the apartment was her own sister becoming a servant. Moreover, she also agreed to other things from the demon, which included luring others to move into the apartment and continually searching for hosts for the demon. As a result, the slow progress of the apartment's residents angered the demon, causing Aunt Meng's son and husband to be killed by demons. This is also why Aunt Meng was so agitated and shouted that it was all the protagonist's mother's fault. From the overall setting of the film, the apartment seems to be a mix of people and ghosts. All of this is to appease the demon in exchange for temporary peace. The demon holds absolute power in the apartment, killing as easily as squashing ants, which prevents the residents from daring to resist. Even though the Khmer Rouge era has passed, the misfortune and curse still tightly bind them. One detail in the film was handled exceptionally well. The heroine's mother desperately tried to lure others into the apartment, taking great risks to escape with her daughter. However, the heroine forgot her childhood experiences and ignored the warnings from her nightmares, and voluntarily returned to this dangerous place, which feels absurd. Upon arrival, the agent she met was also suspicious. he had booked the car in advance to prevent other drivers from revealing the terrifying rumors of the apartment. When the heroine and John accidentally got into someone else's car, he could only intervene when the driver was about to disclose crucial information. This series of plot points enhances the film's suspenseful atmosphere and lays the groundwork for future developments. I believe many people found the ending hard to understand, not grasping why there were two Johns. However, from the demon spitting into the heroine's mouth, it's clear that the parasitic ritual must have succeeded, so their escape was merely an illusion, created by the heroine's remaining consciousness. But I really don't understand the significance of the dancing woman. And what about Lily at the end? Was she human or a ghost? If anyone understands, please share your thoughts in the comments. Compared to other horror films based on historical backgrounds, The Conjuring series is a true classic. It cleverly draws from real supernatural events and deeply integrates specific cultural elements from America, successfully carving out memorable and deeply resonant horror imagery. In terms of narrative, The Conjuring series ingeniously weaves cultural elements with horror plots. The storytelling flows smoothly with a tight and logical structure. In contrast, this film set in Cambodia exhibits obvious shortcomings in all areas. The Khmer Rouge period in Cambodia is a unique historical backdrop with great potential for exploration. However, this film fails to fully unleash that potential, which is truly regrettable. If you enjoy my channel, please subscribe to it. Your support is my greatest encouragement.